Hello and welcome to the France 24 interview. Now they're known as rare diseases, but together they affect as many as 30 million people in Europe alone. Most of the sufferers are children, the effects severe, disabling and at times fatal. Now most of these conditions are genetic in origin, but here in France there's a rather unusual way to attract funding. It's known as the Telethon. It's a popular 30-hour television show that both raises awareness while asking the public to dig deep and donate. This week I'm joined by Fulvio Movilio, who is the recently appointed Scientific Director of Telethon, which is the biotherapy lab connected to Telethon. Thanks for joining us.
Bonjour.
Now, obviously the fundraising happens in December, but it's not until now that we understand whether all the promises have been fulfilled. Was 2011 a success?
It was. The Telethon raised this year more than 94 million euros, which is, considering the time of the economic crisis, a fantastic result. I think that we owe this to the generosity of the French people and to the very good organization of the entire initiative. Telethon is really unique. As you said, this is unique for France. Even though there is a Telethon in Italy, there are other smaller Telethon in Europe. But it's really France that invented and perfected this formula for raising money for medical research.
So the results here are a 4% increase on last year, but this is after donations dropped in the years before that. Was it affected by the crisis? Does the crisis affect these kinds of fundraising events?
Well, we did expect the crisis to affect much more this kind of fundraising events. And as a matter of fact, the generosity of the people was really almost intact. I think that there has been ups and downs in recent years in terms of collection of money, but altogether I think it's very good. We really did not suffer from the economic crisis as much as I personally would have expected. Yes.
Now, 94 million euros. How is this money spent? What do you do with it?
Yeah, it's spent basically on research, essentially on research. More than 80% of the money collected from the Telethon goes directly into medical research and in other activities like aiding people, providing assistance to diseased people, and of course a small amount goes into the organization, which has some price. But most of it, and I think it is a very remarkable percentage, goes directly into funding medical research, advanced medical research. This is really the main mission of Telethon, and this is what Telethon, the institute that I direct, is about. It's translating this money into medical therapies.
Obviously, this is important work. Why are we asking the public to fund this kind of research? We've got governments, the European Union, we've got the kind of all-powerful pharmaceutical companies. Why is Mr. Every man on the street being asked to pay for this?
That's an excellent question. And actually, if you think about the real amount of money, the real numbers that we are discussing, 94 million euros can seem really a drop in the sea if you consider the overall amount of funding that goes into medical research from governments, from the European Union, as you said, and from the pharmaceutical industry, of course. So why do we need this money? Well, first we have to understand that the focus of our research and of Telethon, of the collection of this money, is actually rare diseases. Rare diseases that, as you said in your introduction, collectively affects more than 30 million people only in Europe. But every single one of these diseases is rare, which means that there may be hundreds of patients or maybe thousands of patients, but this is not, as a medical target, attractive enough to be interesting for the pharmaceutical industry, of course. So this is an area in which really what needs to be done, and you need a subject to do this just because the normal industry would not do it, is actually translate the innovation that is done in academic laboratories, in universities all over the world, into the real therapies. There is a work to do, which is called translational research, which is really translating, transforming a good idea, a good experiment in a little animal into a therapy that can be delivered to patients on a regular basis. So this is normally what the industry does. But as I said, in this area of medicine, the industry does not do that. And what Telethon and Genethon can do with this relatively small amount of money is making sure that the wealth of knowledge that the laboratories are producing is channeled, is really translated professionally into the development of therapies. This is a role that is not played by anybody in this moment in these specific areas, and it is a very important one. So all the money that people donate, they have to know that it is almost entirely used to develop therapies for patients in need, because there's nobody else that is doing this at the moment.
Now, the Telethon has been running for 25 years. Speaking a little more broadly, how far has research into genetic diseases come in this quarter of a century?
Well, Genethon was one of the pioneers in genetic research. Actually, it started not as a gene therapy laboratory, but as a gene hunting laboratory. So Genethon produced the first human genome map worldwide. So this was really an incredible achievement, and it was done by this institution. Then with time, the focus changed from hunting genes, from discovering genes, into actually using genes to cure genetic diseases. And this is the current focus of Genethon, and this is what we're doing now.
Some of the most well-known gene therapies have been used in immune deficiencies, but it's much broader than that, isn't it? What diseases are we looking at?
Well, gene therapy, more than a technology or a technique, is actually a concept. You want to use genes to correct genetic disorders. So you actually want to edit the genome in order to permanently correct a genetic disease. So it's different from a drug. You take a drug to correct the symptoms, and you take it every day or every week. The real focus and goal of gene therapy is permanently correct the disease. So this is new, and as I said, it's now applied mainly on genetic diseases. So you have a defect in a gene, you try to fix it. But what has to be understood is that this, in general, as a way of approaching medical treatment, could have a much broader impact in the future. Actually, this technology could be in the future the technology for correcting a large number of widespread disorders, like neurodegenerative disorders, like metabolic diseases, like even cancer maybe.
So cancer, there is a role perhaps for gene therapy in cancer?
Oh, well, there is a role already now for gene therapy in cancer, even if probably for the general public, gene therapy is best known for a way of treating genetic diseases. But there are many actually studies going on right now on the use of genes to increase the power of regular drugs, or increase the power of the immune system in fighting tumors, which are having reasonable success, and will have even more in the future if the technology really becomes, let's say, interesting for the industry, which will eventually make the difference.
Now, the technique hit a bit of a hurdle after some of its early success. Would it be right to say that there's still some powerful ethical questions around its use?
No, I don't think so. I think that the technique is still relatively primitive in terms of development, and this is sometimes difficult to understand, because it takes more than 10 years normally to bring really into a therapeutic treatment available to patients one idea. So in what we are using now is technology, is genetic technology that is 10 or 15 years old. But I don't think that there is any ethical issues really in using genes. There was, but I think it was mostly misperception. And that there's a misperception that it's always around genes, genetic technology, genetic engineering, that raises more concerns than they should.
But now I've always wanted to be taller, and perhaps I'd want my children to be taller. Is that something in the foreseeable future that I could affect that?
It might, if you think about it. It's always been, because breeding technology is a form of genetic treatment, if you wish. I don't think that this is really a concern. I think that what what we want to do with genes is not make you taller or more beautiful, which is almost impossible, but it's really to treat diseases in ways that regular drugs cannot actually do. So correct the genome, correct the defects of the genome, not improve human beings. I think that this will be, at the end of the day, neither interesting nor economically viable. It won't happen.
And just very briefly, last question. Obviously, you've been working in this industry for more than 20 years.
Yes.
Why did you pick this particular? Where's the passion come from?
Well, my goal is to develop true treatment for these diseases. I think that the reason why I'm here is that the opportunity that this organization, the French Muscular Dystrophy Organization, the Telethon and Genethon is offering to the field, to people interested in treating disease is just enormous. The role that this organization is having in promoting medical research for rare diseases is unique in the world. And the type of opportunities that I think my group, my institute will have, thanks to Telethon and thanks to the generosity of the French people, is just unique in the world.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thanks for joining us here on France 24. And for everyone else, there's more news coming up shortly.